The interest rate decision by the U.S. Federal Reserve, the Fed. Will the Fed actually proceed with an interest rate cut in the upcoming September meeting? And what are the key factors, the internal contradictions that the Fed is currently facing? Hello everyone, and welcome to our channel for in-depth financial analysis. Today we will break down and analyze one of the most complex and far-reaching monetary policy decisions in the current economic context. To understand the current pressure, we cannot ignore the recent string of employment reports. These numbers aren't just dry statistics. They are a wake-up call about the health of the labor market. Let's look at what has happened. The May report initial data was exciting, with 144,000 jobs created. But after a short time, that number was suddenly adjusted down sharply to just 19,000. The June report, a similar scenario repeated itself. The initial figure was 147,000, and it was later adjusted to a record low of 14,000. The July report, market expectations were 120,000, but the actual result was only 73,000. This data shows an alarming weakening of the labor market. The total number of jobs created has continuously fallen and been adjusted to extremely low levels, creating significant pressure on the Fed. This is the first piece of evidence that supports the argument for an upcoming interest rate cut. The weakening of the labor market has created a strong wave of reaction, not only from the financial community but also from political circles. We all saw President Trump's harsh reactions, even firing the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics after the July report. This action is not just a political message, it's also public pressure, forcing the Fed to reconsider its policy. At the same time, the market has clearly adjusted its expectations. Look at the CME Group's FedWatch tool. Before the July jobs report was released, the probability of a September rate cut was only 41.3%. But immediately after the report, that number shot up to 94.9%. This is an incredible shift, showing the market's near absolute confidence in a rate cut. Although the pressure from politics and the market is immense, the Fed cannot act hastily. Their decision must be based on a multi-dimensional analysis and a consideration of a highly difficult problem. On one hand, we have a weak labor market, a reason for the Fed to loosen monetary policy to stimulate economic growth. On the other hand, inflation remains a constant worry. The current core PCE inflation index is at 2.8%, still higher than the Fed's 2% target. Will the Fed accept the risk of cutting rates, pushing inflation higher, and having to face a stronger tightening cycle in the future? Fed Chairman Jerome Powell once stated that cutting rates too early could cause inflation to reemerge. However, the current situation suggests that if they do not act, the Fed could cause unnecessary damage to the economy, particularly the labor market. In this difficult situation, is there a way out for Powell and the Fed? There is one argument that could be used to justify an interest rate cut. That is to blame the current high inflation on trade barriers and tariffs. If the Fed argues that tariff-induced inflation is only a temporary factor that will self-correct, they could be freer to make a decision to cut rates without worrying about violating their inflation control goals. The upcoming September meeting will be one of the most important Fed meetings this year. This is not only where the Fed will announce its interest rate decision, but also where they will update their economic forecasts. These forecasts will shape market expectations for the rest of the year. The market is betting almost entirely on a rate cut, and the evidence from employment data, political pressure, and the shift in market expectations all show a clear trend. The final decision will be made in September, and it will shape not only the US market, but the entire global economy in the time to come. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next program.